Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon. Teresa?
I am Teresa Harvey, President and CEO of the North Orange County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our audience today, our Facebook friends and others on this call. I'm Teresa Harvey, President and CEO of the North Orange County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our program of conversations with community leaders, and we're pleased to have the very busy Senator Barb Archuleta with us here today. Senator Archuleta is a former presidential appointee and former mayor of the city of Pico, Rivera. He's dedicated his life to serving his community and his country proudly. He was elected by the California residents in November 2018 to the state Senate, where he represents the 32nd District. The 32nd District includes parts of LA and Orange County, including all or portions of Buena Park, Whittier, La Mirada, Norwalk, and more. Senator Archuleta has been serving as the chair of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. He is the first Latino Army veteran named to this position. Congratulations. He also serves on the committees of Business, Professions, and Economic Development, Governmental Organizations, and Insurance. In 2019, Governor Gavin Newsom appointed Senator Archuleta, who served in the United States Army in the 82nd Airborne Division, to the Governor's Military Council. He served as presidential appointee under the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, as a member of the Board of Visitors to the United States Military Academy at West Point. The senator was the first Mexican-American to be appointed to any presidential board and was immediately elected co-chair. He has a beautiful wife, Rose, and 5 children who keep him very busy. 2 of those children who have graduated from West Point and are currently serving in the military. Senator, welcome. We're so glad to have you here today.
Teresa, thank you so much. And introduction, we could have just shortened it down that I'm a servant to the people. I enjoy it, and I'm blessed to be a senator representing the 32nd Senate District. Obviously, a nice portion of Orange County, which is Buena Park area. So if you got a piece, you got it all. So thank you for bringing me together and with everyone. I know that the chamber is always working hard. Today I was in a chamber meeting with another chamber out here in the district. I've been fortunate enough to speak in front of, I think we had 6 or 7 chambers at a meeting one time, and it went really well. But that was before the coronavirus. So we had over 350 people there, but obviously we can't do that anymore because every time we turn around, we're wearing these things and taking them off and putting them on. And Kyle Miller is here in the office with me, and he's got his on because he's 6.2 feet away from me. And so
can't be far enough.
He's doing well. But again, thank you for having me on, and I appreciate to be on your radio show or your TV show.
I guess we are in the big times in TV now, and it's great. So, Senator, you just completed the first 2 years of your freshman term as a senator representing the great state of California and our district here. Tell me a little bit about your highlights of your term of service and some of the great committees, and I know you served on the Veterans Affairs Committee. Sure. But your experience is there.
Well, I tell you what, I call myself a sophomore. My freshman year was trying to find the hallway and parking lot and everything else. But I've been very fortunate, as you had mentioned, that I was appointed by the governor to be on his military council. And that's made up of military leaders, current and past, who have knowledge of military and veterans. And I am on that council. And we oversee the 33 military bases in California. So when you think about that for a second, we all seem to think about maybe Camp Pendleton or maybe the Navy bases, but we've got bases all over the California. So they have to adhere to California law. They have to adhere to the things that we're concerned about, whether it be the environment or the treatment of our men and women, not only in uniform, but the civilians who come in and out of these bases. So there's a lot of aspects to it. But I'm honored to be named by the governor to do that. So I'm really happy to do that. But yes, I am the chair of the Military and Veterans Council. And just for a minute, I know this is really important to Orange County. for years and years, Orange County has been trying to build a cemetery for our fallen veterans. And as you know, our World War II veterans are slowly leaving the population, but we've got thousands upon thousands of veterans in Orange County. And I know the families would love to have their honored veterans, find that resting place, that final resting place in Orange County. So I've been able to bring all the people together. We've had hearings there in Sacramento. And right now we are going through an evaluation of 2 sites to see which site would be better to serve the County of Orange, to serve the state of California, the families and the veterans themselves. So rather than fighting, I said, let's look at it and see which would be feasible all the way across. So that's a big step. So we're working with CalVet, we're working with the Veterans Administration, the governor's office, and of course, the White House to put this together. And hopefully we can do this in the years that you and I will be serving.
That's great. And for those people who don't know where those potential sites are, do you want to just briefly recap that for us?
That is at the old El Toro Marine Base, and there in El Toro. And one site, I guess, is looked at the other. One's called the golf course, and I forget the name that they've given the other one. But they're, I said it didn't matter to me. What matters to me is the veterans are laid to rest there in Orange County at El Toro, and whichever is best mathematically for the community and the city of Irvine and the county of Orange. That's where I'm at. So we're working hard to do that. That's a big one.
That is a huge one, particularly for our local veterans. And I know that Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva has been working side by side with you on making sure that this is an important issue for the state to consider. Veterans Affairs is really a huge area for the state to consider. This is a population that has issues with homelessness, with opportunities to gain access to educational resources, and then the jobs that come with that. What other key issues did you really dive into as a committee or as yourself, as your passion is really in this area?
Well, let's turn the page away from the veterans for a moment, and let's talk about education. As you know, in California, there at the state capitol, we get together, the senators, Republicans, Democrats. We try to cram things through even at the last minute and pass bills that make sense. But there's one thing that we all agreed upon, and that is the education of our children, the future of our children. And so some of the bills that I've jumped on and voted for pertain to student loans, as an example. We've got the kids that are into college, and they come out and they have an enormous loan on their education. So we went after that bill to establish a better student bill of rights, to be able to make sure that some of these students can get away from some of these lenders that have taken advantage of them. We've done that. Also, the educational situation throughout California is all important to us. So all of us have worked hard to satisfy the economic quest that some of our students have, but are still looking for a fair way to get into college, to be able to sustain themselves. Because believe it or not, when you mention homelessness, we have students that are living in their cars in the parking lots in some of their schools here in California. And I'm not just talking LA County, Orange County, I'm talking across the state. And so it's there. So we're looking to create housing opportunities for these students. We're also looking to make sure that we don't lose a student at the end as they're approaching their 4th year, to be able to keep them in if they've got to keep the 5th year. So that's been important. And again, the K through 12. This is something that we're so proud of, that we didn't take money away from education. We made sure that education was funded. And whether it be Orange County or LA County, we wanted to make sure that there was funding sufficient to keep our schools going. And as you know, right now, everything's upside down because teachers are still on board, working so very hard. And even with the stress, they're still able to communicate, as we are right this second, over the computer. So an entire world is changed, but the pandemic has done that, and we're making sure that we're not forgetting any of our kids.
That's a huge issue. One of the things I hear as I have my ear to the ground, as I'm sure you do, is access to high-speed fiber or high-speed access to computers and internet connectivity. And I know this is something that the state is really working on to make sure that they are a good partner in supporting the technological tools that are needed for the students to be successful.
You're absolutely right, Teresa. You know, when a young child can't get on his computer, get to his teacher because of the Wi-Fi is not working, or they don't have that computer, then something's wrong. We've got to make sure that this generation, right now, the incoming class, you mentioned freshmen, all the freshmen, whether college, or whether in high school, or the kids that are third and fourth grade, they all have an equal opportunity to get on those computers and have a certified teacher and instructor that's going to teach them and help them. And there should be no digital divide. And that's the one thing. If you want to talk about equality across the board, give everybody access equally to the electronics that they need and the tools that they need right now. That's very important.
Absolutely. So you brought up COVID, and I know the COVID virus is something that's affected every household in California. How did the legislature work together in a bipartisan way to bring resources to California citizens?
Well, I tell you what, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And I say it again. So we have the power to correct as much as this as we possibly can in our own circles, our own families, our own communities. And if we're going to stop this thing, we have to do it household at a time, neighborhood at a time, believe it or not. And I have to acknowledge the chamber and all your members, because everyone is very aware that if you wear the mask, you wash your hands constantly, you wear the gloves perhaps, you stay the distance, you know, it'll stop. And it's so important. As we're waiting for the vaccine, we've got to do our part as community leaders, as families, as mothers and fathers, everyone. We've got to make sure that we do our part. And that's not much to ask. You know, it just takes a little minute. And right now, every business that I've gone into, I see people respecting that, whether it's the market, whether it's a restaurant that was out in the street, in the curb, and they've been trying to do that to keep the economy going, to keep their own personal economy going. They had to be diligent in what they're doing. So the virus that is really attacked the economy and so many families, over 200,000 people have died across the nation. It's something that's very serious. So we have to educate this next generation that these things can happen, and they can happen to friends and neighbors. And when it all started, we didn't have anyone we can point to say, oh, but now you think about it, somebody knows somebody who was affected.
I think that's without a doubt. And I know the Chamber was a great partner with a generous donation to the Nixon Library of distributing masks. And we picked up cases of masks that we were able to deliver throughout our business community, share with community members, and really have an opportunity to help promote a healthy business environment, healthy community environment that we can all enjoy. I know that there were a number of legislative issues also that address this, relating to not only education, but a lot of our health and safety. How did the legislature go about approaching and choosing the priorities when the budget became more and more constrained?
Well, let's look at priorities that are realistic. Number one, that we all seem to understand that if we don't do something to drop the scale, the band, the scale, the arch, call it whatever, we've got to bring those numbers down in reference to the coronavirus. We've got to bring those numbers down. But also, we were obviously very concerned about that, to keep our hospitals open, make sure that they had the proper funding, the mask and the gowns and all the equipment they needed. So we put a lot of money into that. The other thing that we were looking for is our fires. My God, you know as well as I do, these fires that hit Orange County, LA County. I don't think there's a county in the state that wasn't touched by a fire. And here in Southern California, we had our tremendous fires as they did up in Northern California. So the coronas, the fires. The other thing was education. It was very important. And of course, you mentioned public safety. We'll touch on that just a second. But the homeless. So we have found now that one of the cities that is being very, very proactive, and I got to give them a shout out, is the city of Whittier here in the district. And they were able to put together homeless shelters, and now they're able to move the people off the streets. And they've mandated the situation to be this, that if you don't get up and move into the shelters, you cannot be in the streets. You will have to leave. And they are realizing that people are actually making the choice to go ahead and go in the shelters now. And so they're having that. And as they leave, they're cleaning up, and they got their public works coming in, and they're working with their various departments. So they're being very proactive. But homelessness still is there. To be able to house everybody is so very important. But we got to make sure that people are fed as well. And I got to give a shout out to all the volunteers in Orange County and LA County across the board that were handing out packages of food or boxes of food. And I myself and my team, we participated with over 5,000 bags of food that the team distributed. So we're happy about that. And when they say we're in this together, we're going to get through this together, there's an example right there. And I know the chamber is very much involved with the small businesses and all the business that you represent, where it's not just one chamber, but all of them. And look at your sponsors and that have always been there for you, whether it be the bank, whether it be a local merchant, everybody's jumping in to help those who need help.
You're absolutely right. And I think that everybody's come together to make sure that we serve those who are in most need. You mentioned the shelter in Whittier. We also have one that opened recently. They called it a navigation center with the full wraparound services in Buena Park. Again, a great opportunity for us to connect with those who are in great need and to get them off the street and to bring them together. You mentioned public safety, and I'd like to get back to that because I think those who are serving, if we talk about people who have been on the front lines throughout the coronavirus, certainly we recognize our healthcare workers, but I think then we have our first responders, our public safety, our police and fire, who are really out there with the public, dealing with them every day in a very tense environment, whether it be politically, socioeconomically, the impacts of the coronavirus and isolation. Please share with us your experiences there.
Well, let me tell you, my hat goes out and my heart goes out to all our first responders. All of us. I served with the Montebello Police Department. I can't remember if that was in that entire opening line, but I did serve with Montebello Police Department. So the men and women I served with, God love them all, I'm telling you, and the firefighters. But we've got to understand this is a big umbrella, and everyone underneath it is there to serve and represent their communities and the sacrifices they make each and every day, whether it be the paramedics, the firefighters, the police officers, the people there in the emergency hospitals, receiving everyone. It's an entire team of people that have dedicated their lives to serve and represent the communities. So when you talk about all these various issues that are out there, yes, everyone's, of course, running away from it, but all these people are running into it because the first responders have got to be there. The firefighters have got to get through to help those. So imagine that. And how many mothers and fathers every single day are jeopardizing their own health at the hospital, or a firefighter who's trying to break open a door to get in there and save that child's life, or the police officer who risks his life trying to save another. It happens all the time. And the nurses, God bless our nurses, because right now they're working overtime and they're working with everybody. So it's a whole team. It's an entire group of individuals that we're awfully lucky to have them here in California.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that one of the things that I think is a challenge for any legislature these days is to balance the needs of community against individual, to balance the needs of businesses and economic development against the needs for their constituents. And that really raises a number of business issues. But I think that one thing that is particularly of note is some of the legislation that we're waiting to see the impacts on business. Certainly issues such that were came under such things as Senate Bill 1159 that was codified the executive order of establishing the presumptive, the reputable presumptive of work-related and workers who have contracted virus, the COVID-19 virus between March and July. If it happened, if it was assumed then that it happened on the job because they were still in the work environment and every day were there. And I know that this is a matter of balancing employees and our supportive employees against the employer's obligation that now they are likely to be impacted with higher work comp rates that are going to be yet another struggle in the economy that keeps our small business going. Talk a little bit about how you as a legislator weigh the variables when it comes to some of these difficult bills that impact both business and your constituents.
Well, I tell you what, Teresa, I'm pulling on this side and I'm pulling on this side because I like to think I'm the guy in the middle, the moderate, who understands as a former, actually I am still a real estate broker. So I have that knowledge of business, and I've represented so many business owners in my career. I know what it is when I talk to them, when they talk about workman's comp. I know what it is when they talk about overhead, and certainly having enough income not only to sustain themselves, but all the employees they have. And we've got to be sensitive to that. And as I mentioned, that I believe that our small businesses are the cornerstone of our economy. They're the cornerstone of our growth and our future. But I know one thing, there's a lot of open hearts. And you know, I was telling somebody today, most companies that have 100 employees and less, the proprietors, the owners, the CEOs of those businesses actually know every employee by name. They know when they got married. They know when they had their first child. And a lot of the people who work for these businesses at about that range, 100 or less, they've been with them 10, 15, and 20 years. So there's a lot of a common ground between them. But, you know, when you go across the entire state, what SB 1159 tried to do was to work with everybody. And, you know, this is something that the governor felt was essential, and the legislators that were behind it, we tried to find a happy medium. And, you know, when you know, this presumption that you got hurt on the job, obviously, was it because of the virus? Was it because you were exposed? Was it because there was right now, look at the fires, the smoke. Our firefighters right now, imagine what their lungs looked like. Is that also part of it? Of course, it's something that we have to look at. But you know, we have to find out and give everybody an opportunity to be able to present it, put it on the table, negotiate it, and to find that they can prove that there was something there. Or give the employer a chance to say, hey, you weren't here. That didn't happen on my watch. And so, you know, it's rebuttable. So the employee and the employer could sit down and do that. And not every bill that comes across the board has that sense of equality where he wants to give a voice to both sides. And right now, what I've told everybody, if there's a legislator out there that may not be as business friendly as he should be, guess what? Next time around, he will be, because he knows that every one of his neighbors and friends and somebody knows somebody who that business is barely hanging on, reopened or closed and reopened, or maybe closed totally. So now they better open up their hearts and say, wait a minute, let's take a look at these bills. How can we help the small business? How can we be more business friendly? And that's what I'm trying to do. And I guess that's probably why all the Chamber of Commerce's that I work with and the support I get from the business community, they want to say thank you. But again, at the same time, we've got to reach on both sides of the aisle. Because right now what's happening is not one side or the other. It's all of us working together, and we've got to do this. We've got to give everyone a fair chance to get back on their feet, get to work, and have the ability to come back. And I will tell you this, as long as we're talking about some of the bills, I know that some of the hotel owners, as an example, they were concerned about seniority and that you would have to bring back the most senior people. And I said, wait a minute, time out. Wait a minute. Somebody's got to come in and fire up that boiler, get the electronics going, and this, that, and the other. And the gardener can't do it. You know, the doorman can't do it. So you can't bring everybody back solely on seniority. You've got to make sure they're essential. And so we were able to hit that. And I brought that up. So there's going to be a chance for everybody to come back to work in a fair and equitable way.
Yeah, certainly we hope so. One of the things that has been in the news here in Orange County, and it affects your constituents in Buena Park, is the amusement parks. What are your thoughts on timing of opening those? And I know that it's in the governor's hands, not yours. But I know and we're in two different situations in LA and Orange County, where Orange County is now in the red and LA County is still in the higher, less open environment of the purple tier as we look through the tiers. And I know one of the challenges is our economies in both LA and Orange County are so hampered by the lack of our tourism. How is California really focusing on bringing back some of the tourism that we really need to keep our economy alive?
Well, Teresa, your question couldn't be better timed. Just an hour and a half ago, I signed on to a letter to the governor that say we must open up our amusement parks. And of course, we're talking about Knott's Berry Farm, we're talking about Disneyland, we're talking about jobs and opportunity to get back to work. And I signed on to that letter just an hour ago, and off it went, asking the governor to give these employees and the employer, Buena Park and Disneyland, the opportunity to work together to be able to follow the rules and make certain requirements met and even exceeded, so it'll be safe for the community to come back. So I signed on that, and I think that the ownership and both sides, those in Knott's Berry Farm and of course those at Disneyland, I think every supervisor, every team leader is going to make sure that the general public is safe. And I have all the confidence in the world that they're going to do that. And that's why I signed on the letter and I put my name on it. And, being a Democrat, being that guy in the middle, you would think I wouldn't do that. Well, guess what? I did. And why? Because I think it's fair and I think it's the right thing to do to bring people back, provided that everybody works together to make sure that we keep the general public safe.
I think that's a key word of advice, is to keep the general population safe. And I think we need people like you whose voice can be heard on both sides of the aisle. Because when it comes to partisanship, I have a saying I like to use, that it's not about partisanship and which party we're supporting, it's what positions we're supporting. And how can we make sure that the state of California continues to be welcoming to business? When we were talking earlier about SB 1159, we were saying that it codified a governor's order, an executive order. Another executive order came down yesterday that had to do with climate control and electric vehicles, or carbon neutral vehicles, where the governor said that he would be phasing out, he would issue an order setting a goal of phasing out combustible engine vehicles by 2035. This is a huge impact that sets California miles ahead of the rest of the country when it comes to really looking at emissions and the impact on our communities. But also we have to look at the impact on industries within our communities. So if you have any kind of inside comments or comments you could make on how this bill is going to kind of impact your region, both from an environmental and an economic direction.
Well, let's talk about this. I am so proud and honored to represent the city of Cerritos, which is in the 32nd Senate District. The city of Cerritos. When you think of Anaheim, you think of Disneyland. You think of Buena Park, you think of Knott's Berry Farm. When you think of Cerritos, you think of the Cerritos Auto Mall, the square, the Auto Square. In Cerritos, we have the largest new car dealerships in the entire country. Let me say that again. In Cerritos, we have the largest new car dealerships in the country. And when I met with their association just a few days ago, we talked about so many things. When I acknowledged the fact that they've got hundreds upon hundreds of employees, we talked about the economy that they're actually spreading through Orange County and LA County, because the employees work in both counties, and the technical skills that some of these young men and women are receiving in order to work in those dealerships. But let's talk about that for a second. But, you know, I have a bill that's going out, the Hydrogen Transportation Electrification Act. Anyway.
Say that again?
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, listen, there is, you know, a tool chest. Imagine this. We have a tool chest that's energy oriented. We have gasoline, we have diesel, we have electric. Well, you know, what's missing out of there is hydrogen. And so, you know, I believe that the manufacturers of some of these automobiles can jump in and create a hydrogen engine by then that would be able to move our cars as we like them, as quickly as we like it, but without the emission spill out that they give. So I think the governor is looking in that direction. I don't know if he mentioned it, but I think that we've got to look to hydrogen as part of the package on energy. And if we think for just a second, you know, some of the countries like Japan, as an example, they're light years ahead of us when it comes to hydrogen and their automobiles. And we've got to look to other sources of energy that will keep us moving. And at the same time, handle our not only our economy, but our environment. So is 2035 too quick? I don't know, but I believe the American people deserve clean energy, renewable energy, to be able to walk outside and breathe in fresh air. And hydrogen just might be the new cutting edge that might help, but it's just another tool in the basket. So we'll see how that works out. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people talking one way or the other, because 2035 is around the corner, or maybe that is enough time. I'm hoping that before we get too far along, that maybe we can all get together and talk and see what the automobile industry has to say about it, what all these various new car dealerships have to say about it. We got to bring everybody to the table. And can we do this? There was a time some years back when people were talking about electric cars, and we kept saying, where are we going to get the electricity? Well, you can plug in right now and drive an electric car. People were wondering how we were going to move some of these trucks without using gasoline. They created diesel. Now, you know, hydrogen. So we're trying to do what we can, and I think a partnership is needed. And I think the governor will reach out to everyone so everyone understands that the foundation of this is the future of California, the economy, and also the fact that zero emissions is important if we can do it, but we got to start doing it now. And Senate Bill 895, which will allow the California Energy Commission to spend monies on its diesel emission reduction fund. There's money there, so we can introduce and find out how we can bring together all these various sources of energy. So that was my bill, 895, and the governor signed it today, and I just got wind of it another hour and a half ago. So that's the idea. We're on our way to trying to bring everybody together. And I've talked with the Edison company, the gas company, other sources of energy, so we could all come together and understand we need a bigger pool of energy that will help us in the future.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. I think that an all-in approach and an all-directions approach to energy and in the state of California is going to be essential to keep us all going. And I know that, like you, I've been talking with Edison Company and with Southern California Gas and making sure that we all have enough power. Switching gears just a little bit, and then we're going to probably have to wrap it up fairly soon, but I know we got started a little late, so we'll run a little late. And this question comes from Brian in our audience, and he talking about a bill that I'm not particularly familiar with. So I'll have you reach back into your reservoir of knowledge on SB 329, which had to do with Section 8 vouchers. And his question is, why did you oppose SB 329? Shouldn't Section 8 voucher holders have the opportunity for economic prosperity? And what are your thoughts on the Green New Deal? So this is an area I am not particularly familiar at all, so I'm hoping you can educate me, shed some light, and answer Brian's question.
Well, let's talk about that for just a second. Section 8 vouchers are administered from the federal government. The money comes from the federal government to the state, to the county, and down to the cities. And every Section 8 program is usually administered within the city. Money comes from the county, comes from the federal government, and that's exactly what it is. But at the same time, we need to find more housing. We've got to be able to find affordable housing. We've got to take care of the homeless, and it's there. Whether we like it or not, we've got to do something about it, and it starts with every single individual. And if the Section 8 program can expand, and I'm all for that, I really am, because that means that we've got more landlords that are opening their doors with people that are having difficulty financially, and if we can substitute or sustain their living quarters by subsidizing, then we don't have anybody out in the street. So there's a lot of good in Section 8. There's no doubt about it. And I think we need to tweak it. We need to make sure that it's fair and equitable across the board. And in some of the cities across Orange and LA County, the waiting list is quite long for Section 8 housing. So we got to find a way to make it friendlier for the homeowner that may have an empty house, that this next tenant might be a Section 8 tenant, because the rent is guaranteed. Supervision is guaranteed. To be able to participate in who will be the tenant is given to the landlord. So I think right now it's getting a lot of attention, and I'm glad you brought it up, because sure, we have to make some adjustments. And because right now with the coronavirus, with people losing their jobs, we've got to find a way of doing it, because the money has got to come from somewhere. And where is that somewhere? People always ask, and I always say this: how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? Well, the best way to pay for anything is get everybody working. And that's where the small businesses come in, getting their doors open. And we've got to do that as quickly as possible so everybody can come back to work. And there's no greater pride than doing a good job at work. When you come home to your family, and how was your day at work? It was great. I helped a lot of people. I enjoyed it. And again, don't forget, I had mentioned I come from the real estate background. So I'm looking for new construction, but also that it makes sense. You can't do something in somebody's corner lot where it isn't conducive to the rest of the neighborhood. But we should have areas that we can all come together and know that, okay, we can build a 5-unit apartment, a 10-unit apartment building. So planning is so important, and working with the independent cities, contract cities, and the various entities that should have a voice, and always should have a voice, on how the community is going to grow. We need to put them all together.
I think that's a great way to conclude things, with people's pride in working and the work that they do, to have a roof over their homes, over their heads, and to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to creating quality homes for people of all income levels that make sense in our communities. Certainly the state benefits when everybody here is working. So let's get everybody back to work. So keep your masks on, everyone. Have a great weekend as we go forward. Yes, watch that mask. I'm going to take a week off next week, but I will be back on October 8th as we talk about one of the essential businesses that crosses borders with Fullerton and a little bit into Buena Park, the airport, the Fullerton Airport. We're going to be talking with Brendan O'Reilly, the airport manager, to talk about this essential piece of infrastructure that's in our community. So for everybody listening, either live here or on Facebook, we wish you well. Thank you, Senator, for coming on to the show today.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to share your views. Oh, please, wrap up comments.
I'd like to salute to our men and women in uniform and those who have served this great country, our veterans. And I just want to thank everyone who served. And remember, we are going to get through this together, and we are going to but just be a little patient, work with everybody, pick up the phone, call a friend, call a neighbor. Let's make sure everybody's okay. And if you can, go ahead and fill up that basket for food so we can go ahead and donate to somebody. Now's the time to reach out and help someone. And when I say reach out, that means you bring somebody else on board to help you help somebody else. So God bless you for what you do. And I am so proud to serve my country, and my children feel the same way. And I'm just so proud of the chamber, and thank you for what you do for our communities.
Again, thank you. Thank you for all you do. And I think that's, again, reach out, help somebody else, pull somebody else up alongside you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye now.